let's go into the breakdown of the Calgary team.
Yep.
You know, kind of want to do the segue into that is so. I mean, you look at these top two lines, you know, relatively competent. You know, like I said, you have Jonathan Huberdeau, you have Elias Lindholm, you have Tyler Toffoli. Very good point producers around the same age. I know 115 points, for Huberdeau, 82 for Lindholm, and 49 for Toffoli. But I think on that top line with Toffoli, if he plays with those two, you're going to see an increase in production. I think he's more of like a complementary piece. So like the sum of the parts around him is going to help him with his production. What do you think?
I honestly think that Huberdeau is going to be the Panarin of this line. He's going to make those other two guys better. He had 85 assists last season. He likes to share the puck. Not necessarily finish, so he's not selfish, which means that you're going to have better vision, you're going to have more playmaking, right, and more opportunities. It's going to increase Lindholm's numbers and Toffoli's numbers, in my opinion. Based off of what he does, he's going to help that line improve offensively, not by being the guy who scores all the goals, but the guy that knows how to create the play. And that's going to be a difference, whereas Gaudreau, you know, I feel like they needed him to carry the offensive load by being the guy that scores all the goals. So there was a lot of pressure on Gaudreau, right? And I feel like this is a similar but polar opposites as far as like their play style.
Right.
So I think that it's only going to make the other guys more offensive. I mean, you look back at like a Ryan Strome with Panarin. Panarin is not the guy that's going to finish. He could finish. He's probably one of the better finishers in the league, right? But he rarely uses that ability. He uses that threat to open up lanes and play make and open up other opportunities for other guys and make them better. Strome, who was not known as an offensive player or powerhouse by any means, had his best season as a NHLer by playing with him and being afforded those opportunities and just having his stick on the ice and scoring. These guys can obviously do that. Now you add someone who's like that in Huberdeau, and you have two guys that can definitely finish and, you know, create and so on and so forth. You have a really deadly line. Their top line is going to be really scary, honestly, for any defense.
So, like, I think, like, frankly, their top line is going to be one of the better ones in the NHL. But I do think, their second line is going to be okay. You're going to have Michael Backlund centering Andrew Magapane. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
And then Blake Coleman. I mean, like, Magapane had in 82 games played, 35 goals, really good goal scoring, 20 assists, 55 points. Backlund, 82 games played, 12 goals, 27 assists, 39 points. And then you have Coleman, 81 games played, 16 goals, 17 assists for 33 points. It's going to be interesting to see. Like, the second line is going to make or break this team, in my opinion. Because, like, if they don't produce, like, it's going to be one of those teams that's just a one-line team. I think you need more from Coleman. You need more from Backlund. Like, you need them to kind of, you know, be good secondary scoring.
I honestly don't think the second line is going to be shaped up this way. Obviously when they brought in Coleman, he had just come from Tampa. He brings that you know, championship pedigree, whatnot, but it didn't translate over so well with these guys. If I think maybe mix it up a little bit, maybe move one or two pieces between them and the third line. I think then they might have a little bit more of a balance. You know, because from the numbers here, everybody's going to know they're always going to be looking for Magapane. He's their finisher. He's the one that scores all the goals on that line.
Yeah.
You know, so you're going to want to look at that and say, okay, cool. Maybe add someone who's a little bit more mid-range, but as you can see by their other lines, there's not really too many options, right?
Because like, for example, I know he's a center, but like Monahan's out for the season, right? So I don't know what the deal with Monaghan is as of right now here on Cat Friendly. He's injured. We have to follow up on that, but I mean, I think the problem I see with this team is, like, besides Magapane, where's the secondary scoring going to come from? I mean,
Yeah.
I think you maybe could switch out Dubé and Coleman. I think Coleman's probably more of a third liner.
Yeah.
Maybe you get a little bit more out of Dubé with an increased time on ice because he only had 12 minutes. Well, yeah, 12 minutes, 50 seconds last year average.
Yep.
Maybe you give him a few more minutes. Maybe he gets maybe 40 points. Maybe that's something you just need on your second line. There's options there. I will say their fourth line is definitely a grinder line with Milan Lucic, Kevin Rooney, and Trevor Lewis.
That's going to be the fun line to watch, honestly.
Yeah, it's gonna be a bunch of hitting and a bunch of fucking finishing checks. And as someone that is a Bruins fan that watched Lucic in his quote unquote prime, he's a fun player to watch, especially when he gets in the mix. But he's not obviously worth that cap hit he is now. But that's going to be coming off the books next year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think up front, when you lose caliber players like Tkachuk and Gaudreau, you're going to take a little bit of a hit because, you lost Gaudreau for nothing. You got Tkachuk, you got a couple pieces back. But it is going to be interesting to see how the Gaudreau leaving, how much that's going to affect this offense because I think you are missing that piece up front. If I'm Calgary, I'm trying to get maybe a good second liner just to kind of round off the offense.
Well, I mean, so in situations like this, it can be a negative, it can be a positive, right? It all depends on how your minor system works, right? Because if you have a minor system that can mirror what your NHL team is doing, it makes it easier for the players to transition from the minors to the upper leagues and kind of just fit in, right? So obviously they have a couple of pieces down there, and that they drafted. They still have they have about four forwards that they drafted that are in their early 20s. You have a center.
They have a lot of prospects. They have a lot of prospects. You have Ronnie Tape Cole. You have
Barry. Yeah, so it may open the door for one of these guys, and if one of these guys can step in and just be at least maybe an average player, that's a great step because it starts solidifying the team in the long run with some of this young talent. That's the whole purpose of drafting. You want to get guys that when other guys start fading out can come in and fill in these roles. And you have some good prospects here and some guys that might be able to just fill in that role. I mean, they definitely have like 5 centers in their minor league system.
3, 4, 5, 6.
So they have about 5 good centers that can probably step in and do hopefully do something. But again, this is all contingent on how their relationship between their NHL team and their AHL team works, and see how easy it is to translate up. See who has a potential to maybe take that step. Especially if Monaghan is injured for the season, right? Then you're losing a quality center. And you're going to have to hope that one of these guys can come in and at least hold down the fort, right?
Yeah.
Not be an elite player, just hold down the fort and be okay, and maybe even grow. Who knows? Maybe we'll see a new superstar coming in. Maybe we're going to have to learn one of these guys' name in the long run, right? But we won't know.
And the thing is, Calgary fans, if you're watching this, because, we don't follow the organization that closely, so we're going to research and stuff like that. But if there's some prospects you're fond of, let us know down below in the comment section, because that would be interesting, and we'll look into it and kind of their prospect profile. It's unfortunate with Sean Monahan, because that was a lot of potential, but he's had a couple of down years now, continually injured, always a hip issue. I believe it was a hip issue, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, injury hip. I think he actually might be done at this point, because he's got some continuous hip injuries. So, offensively, I think Calgary will be a one-line team as of right now, and I think they're gonna have to depend on the second and third line. Hopefully, they take the step up and start producing.
Yeah.
Now the defense, right? You got Noah Hannafin, Rasmus Anderson, Mackenzie Weegar, who they got in that Florida deal.
Yep.
Nikita Zadorov. You got Oliver Killington and Nicholas Milosh. I mean, if you look at Hannafin, 81 games played, 10 goals, 48 points, 48 points, solid. Rasmus Anderson, 4 goals, 46 assists, 50 points, really good. Mackenzie Weegar, 80 games played, 8 goals, 36 assists, 44 points, really good. Nikita Zadorov, 74 games played, 4 goals, 18 assists for 22 points, that's pretty solid. And then you got Oliver Kylington, 73 games played, 9 goals, 22 assists for 31 points. And then Nicholas Milosh, 50 games played, 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points. You know, that's not terrible for a third pairing guy. I mean, I kind of like some of the point production, especially from, Hanifin, Anderson, and Weegar. So I think maybe the secondary scoring comes more from transition from the point. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Maybe that's a possibility. I think Nikita Zadorov, to me, he's a solid defenseman, but I would prefer him for a Stanley Cup contender. I prefer him on a bottom 2 pair. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's top 4 on a Stanley Cup winning team, but he's a big physical body, 6'6". Pretty solid defenseman. I just think number 4 would be a little bit high for me. What do you think of their D pairs?
As far as the D pairs, obviously these aren't set by the teams. It's set by Cap Friendly, and right. I kind of like what Cap Friendly does here. Right, you look at the top pair, pretty equal as far as like points go, plus minus goes, and then the next two defensive pairings. It looks like Cap Friendly has them set up in a way where you have one guy who's very offensive, puts up the higher numbers, and has a higher plus minus total. And then the next guy, has a less plus minus totals, the points are less or whatnot, but you can tell that they're more of a defensive player in the way that this is set up. Now, right. You take a look at this, right, and you got to be happy either way because out of all the defensemen, there's only one guy who has negative anything. All the other guys are plus in their last season, which means that they were obviously there for a lot more goals than they let up. So that's always a good sign that they complement the lines and assist the lines. And in today's NHL, you got to have at least one defenseman that can play 4 forward, right? We all know what that means. He's going to join the rush. He's going to be an offensive threat, even though he's a defenseman, right? And then you need a guy who's going to be able to sit back a little bit and back him up from the blue line. Whether, it's to help slow down the opposition on a counterattack until he can get back. But that makes or breaks a lot of teams, is how the defense gets involved in the offense, but still doesn't give up too many defensive, doesn't give up too much of an offense to the other team, doesn't allow the other team to break out and stuff like that. And according to their numbers, their plus minus rating, these guys are set up to have a pretty strong season. And Milosh is definitely going to improve his plus-minus rating. Yeah. You know what I mean? And also, you take a look at the guys back there. Nobody's under 6 foot, so you have a big defensive.
Yeah, you have a big D-core. Like exactly. You're gonna have a team that kind of wears on you, and maybe it's just gonna be kind of a team that's very hard to score against.
Yep.
I mean that's what you need, though.
Exactly. I mean, you look at all those guys. One guy is under 200 pounds. All the other guys are 200 or better. They're going to be some big boys. They're going to do some really heavy checking, in my opinion, right? And if they're moving the puck and they get involved in the offense, they're going to be hard guys to get off the puck, all right? So I see the defense probably contributing to the secondary scoring this season, probably a little bit more than before, because I think that they're going to play a crucial role in how their offense works.
So another crucial role here, goaltending.
Yes.
Jacob Markstrom had a phenomenal season last year. Yes, 63 games played, 922 save percentage, 2.22 goals against, 37 wins, 15 losses. Then you had Daniel Ladar from the Providence Bruins. Stole my heart, Ladar. 23 games played, 906 save percentage, 2.75. Not bad for a backup, right? Both goalies over 6'5". Kind of funny. Markstrom absolutely shit the bed in the playoffs, though.
Yeah, he did.
He had a awful playoff. And I think it kind of comes down to he has to take that next step in the postseason. I'm not saying the team played amazing in front of him and he let him down. Like, there was some definitely defensive lapses. And maybe getting a guy like Weegar and getting a guy like Huberdeau is an improvement over having just one guy like Tkachuk. Maybe improving your D-core will help this, but Markstrom hasn't shown me enough in the postseason. I mean, he's done a marvelous job from becoming that Florida Panthers goalie when they... it was the Florida Panthers that got him, drafted him. He was supposed to be the next big guy. Never really panned out. Goes to Vancouver, struggles for a bit. Has that season in Vancouver where he did really solid. Then he got kind of dinged up. He gets over to Calgary, keeps up with that momentum, has a fantastic season. But one of the biggest marks against Markstrom is that he just kind of collapses in the moments when you need him most. So I'm hoping, this will be the year he kind of bucks that trend. As for their backup goaltender, Daniel Ladar, I think Ladar, 24, pretty young, but I think he is what he is. I don't think there's much more upside from him, just personally. I watched him in Providence a lot. He's a big body. A lot of his saves are just made because he's big. I think his mobility's not that great. He definitely benefits from being 6'5". I think technically there should be, he'll be a guy that's just a backup. Solid as your backup goalie, but if he's starting for you, you're in trouble. What do you think of their goaltending situation?
You pretty much covered it all. I think that, Markstrom definitely shut the bed in the playoffs. But he has something to build on when you look back at last season. He had a tremendous season last season, and I think that if he builds on that, it's only going to get better. A lot of people, a lot of players have proven that sometimes you need to get smacked in the face before you take that next step. And maybe that was last season. Maybe it was like, okay, yeah, you did good all season, but you got smacked in the face in the playoffs. Maybe this year he comes in and he'll have a better season overall, right? He'll have a good season, and then making the playoffs, I think for this team is going to be good. Especially, I know we talked about the defense, but Balash is just a replacement at this point. You look at someone coming off maybe in like October, December in Christopher Tanev, who has a shoulder injury that says
5 months.
They said about 5 months exactly. So maybe he comes back right at the opportune time. Maybe they make a deeper run. Maybe it's better for them overall. And if they can make some good things happen on the front end, maybe the back end will shine even more as far as the goalies, because I think that Markstrom definitely has a lot of good things to build on. Both goalies had great years last year for their positions, starter and backup. And I think that I wouldn't be too worried about their goaltending, because it's really going to fall on their defense.
Yeah, I think that when it kind of comes down to, Tanev is one of those guys that just can never stay healthy.
Yeah.
It's just always something, and it's unfortunate because he's a really good defenseman. If you put Tanev in this healthy on that bottom pairing, you are looking at a lockdown defenseman. Or even if you put Tanev where Zadorov is on this depth chart, and then put Zadorov down on the bottom two, you're looking at a phenomenal decor either way.
Yeah, Tanev has just been plagued with injuries all over the place, right? He's had lower body injuries, upper body
injuries. I swear to God, it's so unfortunate because he's such a good player.
If you click on that little plus next to his name, it'll show you the history of his injuries.
Oh my God, look at these.
Exactly.
Look at shoulder, undisclosed. COVID. This man can't stay healthy. Look at this.
And it's been consistent. It's every year. So, that's why, when we did our analysis, we didn't really include him in there. But, hey, there's always that dark horse or that wild horse, however you want to call it. He's that wild card, right? That wild horse that can come in, and if he stays healthy because he's had a 5-month layoff, whatnot, comes in healthy and helps solidify that defense even more. Now you're looking at a team that, kind of reminds you a little bit of what Colorado did, right? Where they built their team defensively. They had some offensive power, but defensively, it held the line until the offense got to where it needed to get to, and then, boom, they pushed through the barrier. Calgary is almost in that same scenario where they're solidifying their defense and offense. So it's a good thing, and I think they're going to be definitely a scary team throughout the regular season. Now the playoffs is where we really want to see, any Calgary fan at this point just wants to fast forward through the season and see where we're at in the playoffs, because that's where they're lacking. They're lacking, in the playoffs. They couldn't get a win. Let's
it was rough. It was just rough. I think that they have. They have a guy that's a quality goaltender that just needs to step it up, and you need a decor here to really kind of take the next step and be better in front of their goalie.
Yep.
I think offensively there might be a tiny bit of a setback, but I think there's still enough offensive production to be lethal.
Yeah.
Now look at the standings. Calgary finished in first, and where do you predict them to land next season, Fajardo?
Considering they had Edmonton right on their heels last season. I expect them to be second, third, lowest. At least second. Their lowest point could be third. I don't see them going any lower than that, in my opinion, based off of the team they currently have. But we'll be able to tell early in the season whether last season was a fluke, right? Which I don't think it was. I think they've built pretty well over the last couple of seasons. But when you lose two big guys, two big superstars technically, sometimes overall your team can take a hit. I think they replaced one of those in getting Huberdeau. So it's kind of like, all right, who else can step up to fill in some of the shoe that Tkachuk left when he left? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's going to be one of those situations. I think it'll be interesting, but I definitely think that they have the power to stay in second at least.
I think for me it's going to be between 2 or third. I don't see them sliding out of playoff contention. I think they're too good.
Yeah.
The reason why I'd probably not say 1 is I think it's going to take a little bit in the beginning of the season for them to fine-tune things. You know what I mean? Like you had Gaudreau there, you had Tkachuk there. You kind of knew what the offense was going to look like. And I think they made some improvements with the defense, adding Weegar. I think goaltending hopefully can take that next step. I don't think they lost too much offensively. I just think they missed that one piece, but I think it's just going to take some time to gel. So you might have a little bit of stumbling right out the blocks. So I think, 2. They possibly could finish first, depending on how the season goes. But, I mean, with some of the moves Edmonton made, which we'll talk about in the next section, I mean, I'll say 2 or 3 for Calgary. That's where I'm comfortable sitting them. So before we get off Calgary, anything else you have to add?
No. They still have... even though they were the number 1 team in their division last year, I think that they still have something to prove, especially after how their exit to the playoffs went.
Absolutely. I think they got to really prove, and Calgary's got to prove that they can really win it, and Markstrom's got to step forth and really kind of show that he can shine in the biggest moments and not shrink.